So how things have changed since now that we have the Trump administration. For the previous administration with the Obama, we were talking about when you shot the film. No?
When Obama was president, the language and the ideas about immigration were all somewhat positive coming from the administration, but actually the situation was still not good. Hundreds of thousands of people had been deported, and mostly because of a Republican Congress that didn't want to do anything. A lot of things like DACA were not moving forward. But you can't underestimate how drastically things have changed now with a new regime. Deportations have gone up almost 40% in the last 9 months. That's massive, and I think that when the new president came in, there was a lot of this conversation about reactivating ICE, which is the immigration police, and really going after people with criminal records who were in the country and weren't citizens, but had criminal records. And that has proven to be completely false. New statistics actually came out this past week that talk about the fact that the majority of people who have been deported in the last 9 months have not had criminal records, and just their only sin has been to be here undocumented.
Mm-hmm.
So, we filmed during the election itself, and it felt to everybody that things were just going to stay the way they were. And then we got a big surprise. When we were in the edit room, I had already planned to put a title card at the beginning of the film that said Sunset Park, Brooklyn, USA.
Mm-hmm.
And then I made sure I added summer 2016, because I think as time goes by, to know when exactly this story was taking place will be important.
Yes, exactly.
There were already things in the story that stretched the imagination, the limits of like what was really possible for our characters. But now, for instance, the idea of one of the characters actually going back, crossing the border and bringing his wife over on his own is not very realistic, So, and it's also, it's made the film more vital, certainly on a lot of levels. And I think not in a political way for me, because it's not a diatribe. The film is not over the top in any kind of like proselytizing politically, but I think the value of the film is to actually have an American film made in America, United States of America, with undocumented immigrant characters who are the main story. Mm-hmm. They're not the side story. They're not just the person who comes in and out of the room, but it's their story, and it's a personal story, and the whole story is not about them hiding and evading the police, and it's not a border crossing story. These characters have been in New York for a long time. They're our neighbors, they're our community, and so I think people in the United States who have certain feelings about immigration need to spend time with these characters, and a lot of them don't have the opportunity to spend time with them in their lives because of the region of the country where they live. Although there certainly are immigrants everywhere and undocumented immigrants everywhere, but maybe through seeing the film, they will be able to stand in their shoes a little bit and have a different understanding of who they are.
So the film, we're talking with Jim McKay, director of El Septimo Dia. So the film is like a portrait of a microcosmos of a piece of the society in New York, with in this case the Latin, and more in particular the Mexicans. You were with that community. How's the climate? How do you see how it changes from the Obama to the Trump? Is there a climate of fear, of uncertainty? How's the community? Is it getting together? How do you see it?
It's already changed a lot in 9 months. Every 3 months there's been a different change. At first, I think, people were noting that Restaurants were not very busy. Streets were quiet at night. I think there was a lot of panic at first, and there was a lot of fear. I think there still is. But I think also the more extreme our Republican Party politics have gotten, and it's not just the president. It's very, very important to say that it's not just him. He happens to be insane on a different level, and really seriously evil. But the Republican Party are standing by him and supporting him, and very happy to just go along with what he's saying, even though it's outrageous. So they are actually the people responsible for this. And I think Americans are starting to wake up to that. But also, the more extreme they get, I think the more powerful the immigrant community and their allies in the United States get. Because all of this stuff is on the surface now. All of this white supremacy and this hatred and this prejudice is very out in the open. And so there's something, I'm hoping that in the long run there's something positive about that, because now younger people in particular, but all people, are saying we're going to fight back. And in the last 3 to 6 months, I think we've seen a lot of very positive activism from the undocumented community. A lot of people are coming out and saying, I'm here and I'm not going to hide. It's easier for some than others to do. Some people are coming out and being picked up. Some people are coming out and being left alone, and it's a little mysterious as to how that's all happening.
Yeah.
But I know from the people that I know that I think people are, have had enough and are ready to stand up a little taller because of the attacks that have been made against them, and so I think that's a real positive thing.
The film El Séptimo Dia touches on labor, no? That was one of the main topics. You want to paint us a picture of the labor conditions of the undocumented people in
Before I talk about that, I'll just say that the plot of the film is in the very beginning of the movie, our main character, it's Sunday, and our main character, along with his friends, are playing in the semifinals of their football league. And they're a small team. They're not that great. They play in a crappy little field.
Football, soccer, no?
Yes. But they love it, and it's their day off, and that's what they do. And they win their semifinal game. So next Sunday, they'll be in the finals. So on Monday, a bunch of them go to work. 3 of them work at the same restaurant. And the boss tells one of them, I need all of you to work next Sunday. I have a big party coming in, and I need you all here. And our character tries to kind of say, wait a second, and he shuts him down. He says, look, I don't want to argue about it. You can have Saturday and Sunday off the following week, but I need you here, okay? Period. And the main character is freaked out, of course. He's the best player on the team, and that's the day of their finals. And he's a very conflicted and passive person. So he kind of tries to tell his coworker, but the coworker also kind of keeps interrupting him, and so he just doesn't even keep trying. And basically, he spends the rest of the week trying to figure out, will I play or will I work? And then at the end of the movie, we see what his choice was. I can't say what it is. But the last third of the movie kind of becomes a little bit more like a sports movie in a way, and it's a different tone to the rest of the film. But this idea of how owned you are by your boss. I think this is something that gringos experience as well. I mean, and it's something that's been talked about in Europe, in all countries of the world. Why are we here? When now that we have all these phones and everything, why is my boss texting me at 11 o'clock at night asking me to answer his text right away? I'm not at work, this is my time. And, certainly Europe has a much different view of that. People have 4 or 5 weeks a year off, and in the United States, many people don't have a single week of paid vacation. So I wanted to explore that idea of like, what is our value? What is our value as human beings and as workers, and when does our pride and our dignity get us to that limit where we say, you know what?
Where would you draw the line?
No more. Yeah. And so, yeah.
It's not only with the undocumented people or illegal people that happen. Also, like white normal white collar, blue collar workers.
Yeah.
Everybody's.
Well, it's an exploitative relationship. It's not an equal relationship, and so if you want to keep your job, you got to toe the line. You know. But I think that, of course, undocumented immigrants are much more vulnerable to this kind of thing. You know, there's a lot of cases of people working and not getting paid at all, and then when, you know, who are you going to go tell? Go ahead, tell someone. You're actually not working here legally, and it's, you know, so it's all the actors in my film, all the main actors, none of them had ever acted before. We found them all in and around Sunset Park, talking to people on the streets and interviewing them, and they all work, you know, in jobs like construction and in restaurants and in grocery stores, and even making the film, it was a little bit ironic because when you make a movie, you need to film for 5 days a week, but they were working for 6 days a week. So we couldn't make a film where we just shot every Sunday for, you know, it would take us a year to shoot the whole film. So we had to, it was very tricky actually getting the film made, you know, in terms of them trying to schedule their lives. And it was risky for them also. Some of them had bosses who were okay and who helped them out, and others did not.
Yeah, so that was my next question about the actors. How difficult was it to work with them in terms of the culture when you started approaching them? Right. Were they afraid? Were they? How easy was to get them to be comfortable with their roles and all that?
Well, at first, on the street, we had a team of people. I don't mean this I certainly don't mean this in a sexist way, but one of our producers is a very good-looking Mexican woman, and she's very aggressive, and so she would stop a lot of guys and say, "Hey, can we talk? Can we talk? Can we talk?" And some people just like, "No, I want to keep going," but she would step in front of them and slow them down and talk, and I think they saw something honest there, you know what I mean? After they had a couple of minutes talking with her or with my other producer. And so, you know, interestingly enough, a couple of the people who made it into the film were very, very reticent to talk to us. But most of the people who made it in the film were curious. Because you've got to think, why would someone who's never acted before even come to a casting session? Why would they do that? Well, they were curious. They thought, who knows? Maybe this will be something different for me. So I think just the fact that they started coming back in to audition would show us the level of enthusiasm they had and dedication also, which you need when you're shooting, you know.
And then how do you work with them? Because you don't speak Spanish or speak a little Spanish, and since they're not professionals, when they make mistakes or they move, or you know, how do you manage those?
Most of the guys spoke a little English. Probably some of them spoke as little English as I speak of Spanish, and then some of them had English but not great, and then some of them had very good Spanish. And then I had a Venezuelan script supervisor and a Peruvian second assistant director and a Puerto Rican first assistant director and 2 Mexican producers. And so we were surrounded, people in the camera crew were bilingual, so we were surrounded with people. I wrote the script in English. It was translated in Mexico. I had a back and forth about the translation. Then we worked with the actors. We cast for about at least, I think, like 8 months. So they had to keep coming back in a lot. the auditions ended up really kind of almost being rehearsals and acting class in a way, you know, having to come in and do those scenes over and over again. I was able to kind of teach them a little bit about how acting works, and also was able to see, is this going to work to have them in the movie? And most of the guys who were in the movie, they just got better and better and better, you know. And then at that point, it was very exciting, you know. They knew that if something felt wrong culturally, they should say it. I asked them all the time. I asked them more, like, too much, because I also knew that culturally, or just for whatever reason, they felt like I was the boss. And I think, even though I said, tell me if something feels wrong, I could tell they might not always say it, because they just didn't have the confidence. You know, I'm the boss. Don't tell the boss that this writing is bad, you know? So I was very, very, I never ever stopped kind of talking with them about the script. And, you know, they threw in a lot of slang and added things here and there. And I kept track of it as we went, and if something made sense, it was great. If something didn't, but it was hard. I won't lie. It was difficult. I mean, I can understand, okay, but there were times when a whole section of a scene went by, and I was just thinking, what did they? This is not in the script. What are they saying? You know. So it was a challenge, but it was fun, and I think they learned from me, and I learned from them, and I think it actually came out really, if you see the film, their performances are very, very solid.
Well, we're talking with Jim McKay, director of El Septimo Dia, talking about the challenges. You are an experienced film director, or actually TV director more, no? And how is it different, or like you were talking about some of the challenges working on this, that is more like an independent film, no? So it's not what you were used to do.
Well, the first two movies I made were tiny little movies like this. The first one cost $70,000, a feature. The second one about $110,000, and this one cost a little more than that, but not too much more. And then I had made two films with HBO that I wrote that were more like $2 million. And then I started working in TV shows. So I did TV shows for 10 years without making another movie. So it was intimidating to go back to making something small, but it was also invigorating, you know, because that's where I came from. And I think I had not used some of those muscles in a long time, but I had also gained new muscles, you know. When you direct a TV show, you're working for a boss, actually. It's not your writing, it's not your show. You come in and you bring what you do, and you work very hard and you try and make it great, but you try and make it great the way they want it to be great, right? And when you write and direct a movie, it's yours. There's no one there to tell you, make sure you get a close-up. You know, people will notice in the film, there's not that many close-ups in the film. And I think because when you do TV, every scene, no matter what they're saying, they could be talking about a piece of paper on the desk. Is not that important. You have to see the close-up like that, you know. And I just said, you know what, I want to see their bodies. I want to see more than one person in a frame. I want to see them interact. I want to see the body language, you know. And so I was able to do things like that. I was able to not do as many takes as, you know, I might do on TV, whatever, because I knew when I had it right, you know. So it was good. It was freeing. I mean, it's hard. It's really hard, you know. And there's great things about doing TV shows. You have 120 people there every day, and you have professionals the props people who have done it for 20 years, and the dolly grip who can make sure you move at a certain speed and land and stop at the exact right spot. That's an art. I mean, all those people are artists, you know, and you get to depend on them. And we had a lot of great artistic crew people, but also a lot of people who weren't as experienced, because we didn't have so much money to pay them.
Yeah.
And you depend on maybe not as much experience, but a lot of heart, you know? And I think when you have that, it all works out.
Do you think you deliver the message that you had in the first place with the film?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, I didn't know, this was a different kind of movie for me. It's a little bit, one of the reviews in the United States called it a comedy, others calling it a feel-good movie. That's not what I usually do, you know? So the tone of it was a little different, and truthfully, I wasn't sure what people were going to make of it. And the love that has been shown for the movie has actually been tremendous, and I was very, very surprised. You know, the audiences have been really connecting to it. The reviewers have been very, very gracious and enthusiastic. So I feel like even though I might not have been sure, you know, now I feel sure, you know, and I'm really proud of it.
Awesome. What's the plans for the film? Are you gonna do some more festivals and then professionally? What are you gonna go back to TV or?
Well, I'm already back in TV because I gotta make some money now after I did this and lost a little bit. But we don't have a distributor yet. But we are going to either get one, or if we don't, we'll put the movie out ourselves for sure. It'll come out in the theaters in the U.S. probably in May or June of next year, which means other countries probably right after that. Hopefully summer, World Cup summer, 2018, and what?
Some more festivals?
Oh yeah, we'll be playing a lot of until next spring. We'll be playing festivals. We'll be in Argentina in November. We're going to the Hamptons next week. The New York Latino Film Festival next weekend.
Mexico? Do you think you're gonna show it in Mexico?
Absolutely, but so far there hasn't been. So far, I think it might be Guadalajara. Might be the next festival that we are going to try for, but I'm not sure. But yeah, we hope to play it anywhere and everywhere that it wants to be shown, but specifically in Latin America, of course, and hopefully, you know, it's received in a good way.
Well, thank you very much for the interview. That was Jim McKay, director of El Septimo Dia. We're here at the Vancouver International Film Festival. The movie was shown Wednesday, October 4th, and Friday, October 6th. How was the reaction of the people?
It was great. We had a great conversation. I mean, film festivals are a little bit different because the people who come, they love film. I mean, that doesn't mean that they don't see films that they don't love or walk out or, you know, but I think for the most part, they're curious, they're excited about movies, and last night's screening was fantastic. We had an excellent conversation afterwards. For a filmmaker, you work so hard, you sweat and don't sleep, and then you're in the edit room for all this time, and after all that's done, to be able to actually go and present your work and hear back from people and have conversations, that's really the reward. And this festival's been great. Fantastic.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jim.
Thank you.
That was Jim McKay from the film El Séptimo Día. That was Oswaldo Perez for Radio Alicia. Thank you.